nice, beautiful city of Cluj. Shame on me, first time for me to be in Cluj. Not in Romania though. Very nice weather. I mean, you guys have done a great job in organizing everything, including weather. That's amazing. And thank you for hosting me also in one of the Eastern European capitals of security, because that definitely is Romania. With Bitdefender, I saw a booth there. Florian was actually speaking here last year, if I'm correct. And great talent here. So what I wanted to touch base on, or just a brief introduction, is cybersecurity, what it is, why, and what a huge opportunity it is. Many people still think cybersecurity is very narrow niche, but I see it as a horizontal. It's actually everywhere. IT security, cybersecurity, you name it, it's pretty much everywhere. So what I'm going to do today is scare you first. That would be the first step. Scare you about all the issues that are there. I would like to ask apologies for those who are cybersecurity experts. I will try to stay on the high level only, but still scare you a lot. And then illustrate at least a few segments of opportunity. For those of you who want to do something new, you may not be the best expert in networking, you may not be the best expert in other areas, but still can do a lot in cybersecurity. Philip has introduced me, was very kind. Just a brief background on myself. I'm IT geek by education, so computer science. I've been doing databases and then security, IT security, AVG technologies, antivirus, competing with Florian in the antivirus arena. And then when the company went public, one of the few companies from Central Europe that made it to New York Stock Exchange, and that returned over 150 times to their investors on the investment. So quite a good investment as well. We did. We started doing investments with my friends, and eventually I joined the dark side of the force, so to speak. So became investor and invested in a number of smaller and bigger businesses, both in Europe, in the US, in other regions of the world. So that's my background. Okay, here we go, scaring you. How do we go there? So let me just briefly introduce you to some of the segments of cybersecurity, the way I see them at least. What we are seeing are the biggest issues. One of the segments in cybersecurity that is getting lots of attention of the press as well recently is the global aspect. Which means what is attacking and protecting critical infrastructure. Lots of talks about Chinese attacking or North Koreans attacking the US, Russians attacking the US, establishing cyber warfare centers, both in the US and in Russia, in China, etc. Very often geopolitical reasons for those attacks, not always. Then there is personal segment, so stealing money, pretty much, stealing your information, your identity, and I'll get into more detail about this. But this is something that most of you are most likely gonna be or gonna encounter in your personal lives or in business lives. And then there is data, either your personal data, company sensitive data, stealing your personal information, or data that is very sensitive to companies. Let me cover or go more deeper in these segments, why they exist, and what do I mean by those segments. So infrastructure. Everybody, I think, has heard about Edward Snowden, that guy who stole lots of data from the US, then went to the safe country of and a very liberal country of Russia, where he was fighting for the freedom of speech. I'm biased, by the way. Yes, I am. And he stole lots of data, very sensitive data. But then, obviously, many other people are stealing data, and it's their profession. For espionage, it's a profession very old, one of the oldest, not the oldest probably, but one of the oldest, and very tightly related to espionage, not just James Bond and others. There are other books as fancy as James Bond books or movies, which is about cyber warfare. So what can be done with computers, what can be done to attack other countries, attack planes and attack ships. But these things have been happening for long. If you look at countries like Estonia that Tim mentioned, Estonia shortly, it was I think in 2008, Estonia is a small country that was very much dependent on IT, introduced lots of IT, that was attacked by nobody knows who, or not confirmed, many accusations, and one day just Estonia came under total attack. All their systems were completely shut down, attacks coming from different parts of the world, and the country was in deep trouble. And that was just a test, because it was very small country that got attacked. There were other countries that were under cyber warfare attack. When the Russians came into Georgia, that was probably a pure coincidence, but all their routers, all their firewalls, all their systems that were connecting Georgia to the rest of the world, all of a sudden, the same day as the tanks came into Georgia, all of a sudden, all these devices were somehow reconfigured, and all the traffic was all of a sudden routed through Russia. Nobody knows why, kind of. Iran, their nuclear program, attacked by, again, nobody knows why, and who did it. Well, probably some people know why. So these are samples of attacks that happened, and they will be happening, and we just don't know about others. And then there were other attacks, some of them actually unintentional. So as a result of a computer being infected by a virus, there were healthcare systems, whole hospitals shut down because they could not accept patients, emergency services shut down, and these were attacks on infrastructure, but not necessarily intentional. So this is one part of the picture, infrastructure attacks. These are typically state-sponsored, not always, but many of them are state-sponsored, and there's huge amounts of money going into these attacks. What impacts does it have on world economy? Or the attacks have definitely impact on global economy in situations like attack on Estonia, but even on companies. So if you look at companies like Sony, everybody knows probably the attack that happened to Sony. Lots of very sensitive data leaked out. Big impact on their value of the company, on many people in the company. But it was also Target that got attacked, etc., etc. So many companies that have that are being impacted by this, and we are talking billions of dollars, not just millions, billions of dollars. There is also lots of information being stolen that is private, sensitive data. So companies like Aetna, Anthem, Blue Cross, they store sensitive information about patients in healthcare. When the information about patients gets leaked, that is pretty serious impact as well. And just recently, an attacker stole only $80 million from the National Bank of Bangladesh by attacking one of the systems. I'm saying only 80 million because the scope of the attack was 8 billion. That was the goal for the attacker, and only because the attackers made a typo in one of the orders. So they made a typo when sending some of the money to their accounts, and the other bank actually checked and then said, "Hey guys, you made a typo. Could you correct it, please?" And the guys from Bank of Bangladesh said, "What order? We didn't send any money anywhere." So that's how they blocked it. $80 million already sent. Luckily, the rest of 8 billion was not sent. So these are big impacts on economy. Who is doing that? Very often criminals. Sometimes it might be state-sponsored, like the Sony attack. There are some accusations towards North Korea, but very often It's just the bad guys who are trying to steal money or make lots of money the easy way. And it's very similar to people stealing or robbing banks and stealing money in other places, just using technology. I think in a country that was that got this one small town infamous on Wired by the article called Hackerville. I think you know what I'm talking about. It's just the bad guys. I mean, bad guys are everywhere. And they're stealing money. Now, let's get to a more personal information or more personal impacts. What's going on in this area, in cybersecurity. Things that many people believe would never happen to them. Because, I mean, if I'm a guy who lives in Cluj and just connects to their online banking account sometime, what can possibly happen to me? Chances are you will sooner or later get infected if your systems are not protected, if you do not take enough prevention tool, or if you do not use any security software, etc. Because personal information is actually a valuable asset, and it's not just stealing money from your bank account, even though this is something that most people understand the best. Somebody just stole $100 from my bank account, well, that's not good. But just stealing your password, your access, your personal information is pretty serious as well, because they can pretend, the attackers can then pretend there is somebody else. They can steal some other information. So online gaming, virtual reality, and in other aspects, you have accounts on these systems. You have maybe valuables. Some people play games like World of Warcraft and others where they have valuables. They've spent 2 years building their virtual identity in this world. If somebody steals that, well, that's, for some people, it's pretty serious. And who is doing that? Well, again, it's criminals. Ideally for them, stealing money, but they can convert personal information into money anyway. So they can sell your credit card information, they can sell your account access information, etc. And it's getting actually pretty serious. The issue of identity is very often underestimated. You do not want your government to snoop too much into your emails. I mean, in the US, many people do not like the fact that CIA or FBI or NSA is trying to get into their emails. I'm pretty sure it's very much the same everywhere in the world, but yet identity is very often not very well protected, and many people underestimate it. It's connection or your access information to social networks. Many fake Facebook accounts exist. A friend of mine told me about 5 years ago, he told me, I've never been on Facebook, never had a Facebook account, and then some of my friends started asking me by phone and text messages, hey, you just sent me a message on Facebook and it was weird. I said, hey, I don't have a Facebook account. Oh, you do? I just make you my friend. You have a Facebook account. I was like, no way. So he asked his friend to look it up on Facebook. That friend connected this person behind that fake Facebook account, and that person really tried to pretend he was somebody else, he or she was somebody else, answering questions, trying to fish more information. And given that guy was a CTO of a security company, that was probably the reason, trying to, through social engineering, get as much information about the person, get as much information that they could use for further attacks. So this is very often the case when people are stealing your accounts, your identity, creating fake identity for various types of social engineering, and then later on getting into your bank account or somewhere else. But it's also stealing pictures, relationships, or getting information about you. Pictures, relationships. For many teenagers, it would be a big problem if there are pictures that they post on Instagram or Facebook that they consider very private or that nobody else can see it. if these pictures leak. And for many people, it actually was a trouble. And even dating sites. I mean, the leak in one of the biggest dating sites in the US that was for adults who were having extramarital affairs, etc. The leak in that information even led to losses in lives. Several people committed suicides because their information leaked out. So it actually can become very, very, very dangerous. And what is personal information? So many people think it's just my login, my login name and password. And many people do not realize that there is much more to this and much more that could be used. It's location. So somebody knows that I am, whoops, my device turns off automatically. Somebody has seen that probably. Here we go. So somebody knows that many people actually know now because I sent a tweet on Twitter. So many people now know I'm in Cluj right now. Many people who are monitoring my presence or tweets or Facebook posts know what my behavior is, that I travel often to the Bay Area, to London, whatever. These are all things that could be telltales about what do I do, how they can attack me more easily, and they can collect lots of information, find out many things about myself. And it's not just my accounts on those nets. It's the devices that many people use, Fitbit, various IoT, Internet of Things devices, where these devices are actually not secured properly. Many cameras, those baby cameras monitoring your babies, and many other devices are connected to the internet and send lots of information that you would rather not see leak out. And the value of data is just huge, underestimated, and what could be found based on this data is amazing. The data could be used for the good, collecting information that, like eBay or Amazon, are recommending what you can buy, what better product you have. Netflix recommends you what you can watch. They can predict, for many companies, can predict what's going on next, what this customer is going to do, or even model various other economic predictions, etc. But it can also do the bad. So manipulating data, working with the data, could be used for manipulating stock, could be used for those pesky, nasty advertisements. Actually, that's not considered bad. It's now considered good. So many companies are serving ads and making lots of money on that. So this is something where there is lots of money, lots of value, and it could be mined. The data could be mined and created lots of interesting products. And that leads me to the opportunity. I'm speaking to you. You're smart people from a city and country with very good universities, very good education system, and many think that cybersecurity is only about creating a new firewall and competing with Cisco or with Bitdefender for that matter. But actually the opportunity is much bigger. What you can do in cybersecurity and IT security, if you're considering what to do as an entrepreneur, launch a new business, the opportunity is enormous. To touch any part of all the threats that I mentioned, you can create great products and great value. It could be, and starts with education. And there is actually a Romanian company based in Cluj that is doing exactly that, launching education system training for security. You can do various security tools and frameworks, trying to secure not only the big network infrastructure, your government or your state or your company network, etc. You can actually do secure your applications. You can secure those small devices that communicate with the cloud. All that could be a product. And if you're thinking about what to do next, have a look at this area that is that could be very interesting. You can definitely create tools for securing the infrastructure, deception, trying to trick attackers into your honeypots, into systems that can monitor their behavior, their attacks. Another area is using data analytics. Data science is historically very good mathematics, very good education here in Romania. So if you're thinking about applying what you've learned in your maths, this could be one area that is perfectly viable, and lots of businesses being in that segment, and in very hot businesses. And it's also user behavior analysis, how people behave, how devices behave. If my smartwatch connects to my phone at the same place, what's going on, etc. And last but not least, if anybody can crack the very challenging issue of authentication, that would be great. So finding out or confirming that this is really me when I'm trying to connect to Facebook or to Google or to my bank, other than passwords, that would be great. Many attempts, nobody has fully succeeded in this area, and as some people say, passwords are still the cockroaches of the web. Nobody loves them, and they're still here, and they're gonna survive any attempt to get rid of them. So these are all areas where you can launch your startup, and I think events like this can be a great trigger for you to actually think about that idea you had maybe 2 months, maybe 1 year ago, and as Tim put it, just make that step and try to build your business. And if it's in security, I'd be more than happy to talk to you. Thank you.
So just stay with me 1 second while the next speaker is setting up. So you talked a lot about the opportunities. So what's the next thing that you're going to do? Because there seems to be a lot of things. So can we expect any company coming from you, or you're staying on the investment side?
As I said, recently I joined the dark side of the force. I'm investing, so invested in a number of smaller businesses. I joined a fund that is investing in primarily cybersecurity, IT security enterprise. So that's what I do the most, talking to entrepreneurs about how I can help them with advice, with some experience. Right now, I do not have any plans to go back into the entrepreneurship role, but never say never.
Okay. Thank you so much for finding the way here.
And thank you for inviting me.